had my synthetic boho braids in for about 3 months, which in all honesty, guys, was way longer than I had anticipated having them in before I got them done. And so I wanted to share with you guys a few of the things that I think that you should know before getting boho braids. I think that this list would have definitely have helped me when I was trying to do research into boho braids. This was my first time getting boho braids, and I actually really enjoyed having them. I loved them, hence the reason why I had them in for so long. And so I just wanted to share some tips for you guys who might be considering getting these braids installed. Also, a few extra tips about how best to maintain them, especially the synthetic ones. So the first thing I think that would be helpful to know is that the installation of these braids takes hours. Now, if you are somebody who gets braids, or you go to the hair salon, and you know, you do all the things, you're a regular, you're used to it, it's fine. But I am somebody who avoided hair salons at all costs. Right? I do most of my hair care at home. It's quite intentional. I've had quite a few bad experiences at hair salons. A few months ago, I did get Fulani braids that I went to the hair salon for. But outside of that, I would say the last time I went to a hair salon was probably like years ago, ages and ages ago. So I wasn't sure about how long it would take, but I got to the hair salon around 11, 12 o'clock and I didn't leave until 9 p.m. Okay, so it took about 9 hours to get these braids in. I asked for medium, so they weren't super small, but they also weren't big. I actually think I would have been okay if they were a bit bigger, but the size I would say was like a small medium size. At some points I had 2 people working on my hair and it still took forever. So my first tip would be to definitely allocate a lot of time for getting this style done. Of course, it depends on how long you want your braids to be and how small you want them to be. They of course have an effect on how long everything's going to take and the efficiency of the braider. But I definitely think, unless you are getting jumbo ones, that you should definitely give yourself like 5 hours up. And it's my first tip because I went to the hair salon with very little food, very little water, and a plan to catch up on all of the things in my life that I have to do. And I ended up separating hair and starving, right? So I know it depends on where you go, whether they ask you to help with the separating of the hair. Okay, but where I went, they asked me to help and I naively said yes and ended up separating hair for hours. Which, to be honest with you, I mean, I've decided to take that L because the price that I paid was very, very affordable and I loved them when they were done. And so I figured it was a small price to pay to assist them in their job to get what I wanted. So that is also another thing. I would say that the price range for getting these braids varies so much. My advice would be to do your research, try and get quotes from a few different places before you commit to anyone. I also learned that the really good places are booked up for months and months and months and months and months, and also require that you jump through 1,000,000 hoops. So just brace yourself, right? This place that I went was good and I got what I wanted, but I was like taking the hair out and handing it to them. So if you're not ready for those type of shenanigans, then you're probably going to have to pay a bit more and you are probably going to have to book way in advance. When I got my Fulani braids, I did try to find somebody professional to do it, and still I didn't have a bad experience, but it still wasn't the best experience. I arrived on time and no one was there, so that kind of left a sour taste in my mouth. So I am still looking for a more professional service, which I might give a trial the next time I get my boho braids, because I'm definitely going to get them again. But I do know that I will need to kind of look months in advance and make sure that I'm booked in and ready. The next thing I think is important to know is that the curl pattern matters. Okay, so when I was looking at the boho braids and all the lovely pretty styles, and I know this is a controversial take because I've had so many people say to me in real life and on my YouTube hair that I should just get human hair boho braids, they're better and all the things, but the price of the human hair boho braids is astronomical. Okay, everywhere I have looked, it is out of this world crazy. You're looking at paying for some services in some places for human hair boho braids, you're looking at £500 up. I am always a supporter of investing good money in good things. So I think if you know you're going to get a style that you love and it's going to last you and you're going to have exactly what you want and it costs what it costs, and I'd say to pay it. But because I had not had boho braids before and I wasn't sure if I would like it, I also have fine hair, thin fine hair, and so I tread very carefully when it comes to braids. So I just wanted to dip my toe in a little bit, you know, dip my toe in a little bit, and then if I liked it, then I thought I could then, you know, invest in the human hair. So when I was looking for synthetic hair that I might be able to use, I really struggled with what one to buy. I have figured out that the curl pattern that you do buy, the type of synthetic hair that you do buy, or human hair that you do buy, really does change the look of the boho braid. So there are some boho braids that look fuller, there are some boho braids that the curl is more like a wave, and I think all of those things affect the vibe of the boho braid that you want. There are also goddess braids, which are like close cousins to boho braids. So I would say also to do your research around what kind of look that you want. I will put the link to the kind of synthetic hair that I used. I quite enjoyed this kind of synthetic hair and I enjoyed the pattern. When it was finished though, it was quite full. So I personally would not recommend getting a fuller boho style with a synthetic hair because the synthetic hair does matte. So when they finished doing my hair, they actually went through and cut out some of the curls because I didn't want it to be super full anyway. Overall, just generally, I think it's a good idea to have an idea of the density that you want. So how full you want it to be and what kind of curl you want, and I think then that will help you to determine what kind of hair you need to pick up. The next thing that I think is good to know is that taking it out can be a bit complicated. Now it might just be me because I can be impatient and I don't have a lot of time, and so usually I'm trying to do things very quickly. But I did find that at some points of me taking out my hair, I was risking cutting my own hair because of the way that the curly hair was added in to the braid. Sometimes I found myself cutting pieces of curly hair when thinking that it was curly hair, but in some points when I unraveled it, it was kind of like my hair. So I would just say that you need a bit of time to take them out. So just give yourself time. Basically, all things that relate to having these kind of braids, I think you need to give yourself some time. I know that some salons do take down services, so I'm considering making use of that. But if you are taking them down at home, just give yourself a bit of time and be careful where you cut at the braid. Make sure you're cutting really beneath your hair. The next thing that you need to know, I can only speak on synthetic boho braids because those are the only kinds that I have had. I have heard through the grapevine that human hair boho braids are easier to maintain, but definitely if you are getting synthetic boho braids, you need to allocate yourself some time during the day, usually before bed, where you detangle your braids and you take some time to plait them up. This is definitely not a style where I could just go to bed and not cover my head. And if I did, I paid the price in the morning trying to figure out all the matting. I wouldn't say it's a high maintenance style because of course it's braids, but I think if you are considering getting synthetic boho braids, then it is definitely more maintenance than a style like this, you know, like just a plain braided style. Because it's got the curly pieces, you're gonna need to spend some time making sure that those parts are not super matted and all the things. I also think for synthetic boho braids that the look of them will change. I wouldn't say it changes quite a lot, but there is a noticeable change in the way that they look from the time you get them done to, if you're anything like me, 2 to 3 months later, right? They look different. Because of the way that the synthetic hair behaves, it's definitely not going to look the same at the beginning than it does at the end. I think if you want a more consistent look in your boho braids and you have plans to maybe have them in for a bit of time, then the human hair option is going to be the best choice for you. I personally didn't really mind too much about about the change in the way that they look. It did lose quite a lot of its volume, but I actually prefer that. So it didn't really bother me, but if that is something that you want to see, like a consistency in the way that the boho braids look, then I would say to go with human hair. That leads me to some tips on how to stop your boho braids from matting and tangling. So the first tip that I have is to use mousse. Guys, I didn't know about the mousse trick. I didn't know about the mousse trick until I went on holiday with some friends, and my friend borrowed me or gifted me her mousse, and it was life-changing. Okay, it was amazing. So I would say to invest in some mousse. With my experience with synthetic hair, it really helped me with the detangling. It helped me to kind of keep my braids looking fresh, and it was much easier for me to move through my hair and kind of make it look a bit neater when I had some water and mousse. So first tip would be to invest in some mousse. The second tip would be to detangle your hair in segments and try to keep your hair as segmented as possible, especially at night when you're sleeping. I think synthetic hair is naturally just gonna mat anyway, but I think some things that can exasperate it is when it's left to rub together. Right, so when you've got a whole head of boho braids and it's all rubbing together without any order, you're just more likely to get more matting and more tangling. So whenever I wasn't wearing my hair out, or I wasn't going out of the house, I wasn't going to work, I wasn't doing all of those things, I would try my best to just segment my hair into 4 and just put 4 doo-doo plaits in and just keep it like that as often as possible. And I feel like that helps me to keep the style looking as neat as possible. Also helped with detangling and the matting. So that would lead me to my other tip, which would be to detangle regularly. If you have any free times, your hands are free, detangle your hair. So sometimes in the evening, even before bed, if I was sitting on the sofa, I had a few minutes, I would just kind of, you know, run my fingers through my hair, catch any tangles and try to take them apart. Try to separate my hair as much as possible. I also, though, was not afraid of a scissors. So if I found that I had any larger clumps or tangles, matted pieces, then I would just cut them out. That's also partly, though, because I didn't really mind my hair losing volume, and I didn't really mind having less curls. If that needed to be the case, I'd rather that than have, you know, matted pieces. So I did go through my hair and dust and cut out knots if I needed to. From what I gathered from what the human hair boho braid girlies are saying, I think that the human hair experience and the synthetic hair experience are quite different. So I think if you want to avoid matting, you don't really want to have to deal with the style changing in its look, then my next tip would be to get human hair boho braids. I think I will be trying out human hair, so when I do that, I will give you guys a rundown on what that experience is like and if I feel like it's worth the difference. But even when I was getting my hair done and the braider asked me if I was using human and synthetic hair, she had like a helpless sigh when I told her synthetic, and when I asked her, you know, what could I do to keep it up, she was like, yeah, nothing, it's gonna mat. But that wasn't entirely my experience, and the length of time that I had them in speaks to how much I actually really enjoyed them. I'm not sure if paying 5 times more for human hair is going to be that significant for me. If you are in the same scenario as me, then, and you don't mind matting, you don't mind taking a bit of time to, you know, detangle and sort the hair out before bed, if you don't mind all of those things, then I definitely would recommend trying synthetic first. Yeah. What's there to lose?